a library children can access, the youth can access, and different vocational trades that are offered within those community resource centers, such that it helps to keep the youth and the children busy and not to just idle around where it predisposes them to commission of offenses. Now, the other one is victim support. Here we handle issues of psychosocial support to the victims that are connected with the offenders whom we supervise. So anytime there is a victim within the location where we are supervising an offender, it is our responsibility to ensure that the offender does not continue to access the victim in a way that predisposes them to trauma or the effects of the crime that was committed. And also sometimes we can call the victim to our offices and just do a bit of counseling, do a bit of skills transfer where we have such facilities. And we also work with partners to ensure that if victims need any specialized care, our partners within the community would be able to assist them on reference from probation service. Yeah, I think for now, I would want to stop there, hoping that I have answered the question that was asked before. I can say that if the community is not prepared, really, when somebody is released, especially from a penal institution, and they offended the community sometimes is agitated against them. So if let's say they require some reparation, they require some compensation for them to be appeased. If that is not done, then this particular offender going back, you can imagine if the community is so hostile, some of them have ended up being lynched, some of them have ended up being killed. So a probation officer in such an instance would prepare the community. They would go ahead and talk to whoever was offended and try to bring some form of reconciliation, some form of understanding between whoever was offended and this particular offender. And if there any other rituals or cultural practices or demands from the victim, then the probation office would be able to have like a conference between the offender or the offender's family and the victim and ensure that that is addressed. So that when the offender is coming back to the community, they find a place where they can easily undergo through the rehabilitation program without interruption. And the victim's rights also, they are protected so that now the two can harmoniously coexist. The other thing that a probation officer does to prepare the ground for reintegration, if it is too hostile, this offender might be referred to our probation hostel. Yeah, so that by the time as they're serving the non-custodial sentence in the hostel, the groundwork is being done within the community. The officer is following up on any other thing that needs to be done. If it is the family conferencing that needs to continue, it is done. Or sometimes we may resettle this person. If we are not able to quell the tempers and we are not able to reconcile the parties, this person can be reintegrated in another location where either the family relation is, or we even build houses for them. Yeah, because once somebody has completed their term of sentence, really, the law requires that they be released. Holding them in prison or in a penal institution would be against the law. So the government has that particular provision that then this organization called probation would go ahead and try and see where else can this person be resettled, and resources will be provided either through the government or our partners, and will ensure that a person who was rehabilitated within the penal institution and satisfied all the rules they have changed is not denied the right to go back to the community and resettle. Yeah, thank you so much. And currently we have a population of almost 1,500 children, just children, but the total population of offenders we are supervising is above 20,000. So probation is actually doing a lot of work. Yes. Thank you so much, Carol. I'm sure you can see how much Carol is so passionate about her work. I love that, Carol, about you. Thank you so much for that. So the next person, I'm going to skip Sylvia. I want us to hear from Madame Florence.
because she's from prison. Probation is responsible for integration, but sometimes, most of the time, people are held in prison or in the postal institution. So I'd like for Madam Florence to tell us about, your mandate in the child's perspective. We know that there's a prison, but where do you hold your children? Where do you hold children? Do they go to the normal prison, Kabiti, where we've seen, the adults going, or is there another place that you hold children? Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Our protocols observed. Good afternoon. It is a great moment for all of us, and especially for us from the Kenya Prison Service. We are at the tail end of the justice system. We are the guys who will finally connect the people who have been through the justice system to the community. My name is Florence Omundi Momanyi. I am the Deputy Commissioner General of Prisons in Kenya, and I am the Principal Assistant to the Commissioner General. I bring very warm greetings from our Commissioner General of Prisons, Mr. Youthful Ogalo. I know you all know him because you know the justice system and you know prisons. The Kenya Prison Service basically is in the, thank you. The Kenya Prison Service is in the Ministry of Interior, in the State Department for Correctional Services. It is governed by the Constitution under the Kenya Prisons Act, Cap 90 of the laws of Kenya, and Chapter 92, Cap 92, that is the Postal Institutions Act. We also work and operate under the international conventions. In the criminal justice system, we are the only agency, I would say, who have congregate populations. We have boarders who don't go home on midterm. Since 1911, when the Kenya Prison Service was established, we have not closed our doors. Currently, we have a population of 51,135 or so inmates. Out of those, we have 540 children, but we have many other juveniles within that 51,000 inmates spread across the country. When Madam from the Council of Governors was speaking, she brought out clearly the role of the devolved government. You will find the Kenya Prison Service penal institutions, or call them prisons or jails, in all the counties. We have 133 prisons spread across the country. Out of those, they are classified into maximum institutions. We have 9 of those. We then have 46 main prisons. We have 73 open prisons. And then we have 1 youth corrective training center and 3 postal institutions. It is important that we have that breakdown because it's what is going to help us understand the management of prisons. Having said that, then we could be asking ourselves, what do we do with all those many institutions in this country? Our role is one, to receive inmates and contain them. That is to contain and keep offenders in safe custody. That is key, containment. Containment simply means getting that offender from the judicial system, that is from judiciary itself, from the court. They must pass through the court because they must be legally held in our institutions, and they must have a committal document. Madam Judge will speak about that. And then after containing them, ensuring that they are safe, you feed them, clothe them, give them security, and then protect the community. While in there, a process takes place, which Carol has alluded to, and that is rehabilitation. Rehabilitation or reformation is that process of trying to change the mind, deal with the thinking of this person, to try and, like tilt them from the criminal thinking and rehabilitate them by giving them a skill or by counseling them. And then after that, you also prepare them for reintegration. I hope you are getting the connection. Receive them, rehabilitate them, and then prepare them for reintegration. So that when they go back, they do not reoffend, or they do not become recidivists. They do not commit an offense and come back. And we ensure that the offenders in our custody go through a due process. Now, one other mandate, the third one, is to facilitate administration of justice. Facilitation of administration of justice simply means that while this offender is in our custody, we take them to court for court hearings. We take them there so that then the process of conviction takes place, or the process of release, just in case they were in remand. So we have to ensure that these people are taken to court on a daily basis. And that is why sometimes you have, you may have experienced some discomfort and harassment on the roads when our buses are taking high-risk offenders to court, because we will push you. Why? Because we have to ensure that you are safe. If we are carrying, for example, a terrorist and taking them to the High Court, we will ensure that everybody moves out of the road. Why? Because of their own security. This person can be kidnapped. They can also injure you. Anything can happen. And we have to ensure that you are safe and that this offender is safe, because ours is to ensure that we give them that safe custody. While this happens, this has to be done on a timely basis, because if you do not give them this facility at the administration of justice, then it simply means that you are not giving them justice. You had the Justice Matheka talk about justice for children and for everybody. And then we finally provide training of youthful offenders. I will talk about this briefly because that is why we are here, the youthful offenders. And we also have children accompanying their mothers to or in prison. These are children below the age of 4 years who are accompanying their mothers. Why? Because when the mothers were arrested, either they had a baby or they were expecting a baby. And what happens is that they will give birth while they are in our custody. And it is our duty to ensure that this baby grows up and grows up safely, and that they do not, by any chance, adopt or pick any of those criminal habits or tendencies from the other criminals. Now, I have said that we have 2 Bosia institutions for boys. One is in Shikusa in Kakamega, Western region, and the other one is in Shimolatewa in Mombasa. A Bosia institution is an institution that holds youthful offenders of their apparent age of 15 and 18, between 15 and 18 years. They will be held, they should be there for 3 years, but once they have received an education or they're rehabilitated, they will be released by a board of visitors after they have done 1 year. Then this release is called releasing on licensee because they have not completed what? The 3 years. We have one institution for girls, which is in committee. It is called Kamae Bosia Institution for Girls. This is the only one we have for the girls in the country. It was established in 2016. And I think we only have like 2 in the continent. Those girls go through all those other formal trainings. How do we prepare these children when they're in our custody? They go through formal education. They get education from class 1 to wherever. And then once they have done maybe KCSE, or if they have done standard 8, they will be called to high school. And at that point, then they will be released on licensee and they will proceed to high school. That is where now the probation and aftercare comes in. Okay? If the others have received vocational training or other skills, then they will also be released to go back home to either continue with the further attainment of skills or school, or they go back then to settle with their families. We also have a youth corrective training center. This is in committee. It holds boys between the apparent age of 71 and 21 years. They only stay with us for 4 months in what is referred to as short, sharp shock. Short, sharp shock. This simply means that supposing you are first year in the university, yeah? See, 17 years you're in university, 18 you're in university, yeah? So when you come, maybe you've done something like the way they will throw stones. We used to throw during our time. These days they don't. So what happens is that should you be brought now to the prison, the 4 months will just shake you, put you back on track and take you back to school. And you continue with your law school. When they are in these institutions, actually the criminal element does not follow them, really. So you will go back and you will continue with your studies. But you have to be shaken and brought back on track. It's very friendly, but it shocks you. And then this is the time that we have family conferences. They've already alluded to this. We will call the probation, we'll bring on board your parents and the other stakeholders. Then we'll sit down and try to find out what you see that can be done to help you get back on track. Even for the Bosia boys and girls, the family conferencing also takes place. The Kenya Prison Service backstops national security. It is that critical cog that will ensure that the security is there. And with 51,000 inmates on a daily basis, it is not something that you take for granted. Thank you very much. We will look at the challenges at a later stage. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Madam Florence. Now you understand what prisons is, Bosia institutions, right? Who's hearing Bosia institutions for the first time? It's okay. I didn't know about them when I was in law school. Anyone? Okay. YCTC, I'm sure you've heard about that, right? Okay, so now you understand what the role of prisons is in the child justice system. I'm sure if you are asked, prisons would not be a place where you'd think that children go, but they do go to institutions under the Kenya Prison Service. So now I'd like to welcome Honorable Jackie Bosia. She's a magistrate, and of course, you know the difference between the bench and the bar. She's at the bench, and she'll tell us what the bench's role is in the child justice system. Yeah, thank you.
I don't know, can you hear me? My name is Jackie, I'm a magistrate, but with keen interest in child justice. And that is why I'm sitting before this, this meeting today. Our work, I'm seeing people have a lot of mandates. Ours is just to adjudicate cases. Our work, we are paid to listen. I know majority of you have been to court during your judicial attachment. I think most of you. And at times we give you an opportunity to sit with us at the bench. I don't know if many of you have sat next to us during judicial attachment. What I like doing is having the students sit next to me and do for me rulings. And at times they get very excited when we deliver their rulings because they feel like they have actually jailed someone. I don't know what satisfaction they get from it, but they walk out feeling very happy. Child justice. The reason why I chose child justice is because at a young age, I could see a lot of pro bono advocates going to court to speak for children. And I found it interesting because whatever orders they were seeking, they were granted. So it was very easy because then whatever was the best interest, there was no magistrate who would say no. If an advocate says, I pray that this child is placed at a safe place, the magistrate will just say granted. And where is the safe place? So I found it easier to work as a children advocate, because then the issues were, I can say, unexplored. You know, there's nothing that anyone knows about children. Children are very unique. And if you asked me, the best interest principle may be best interest in the morning and it changes in the afternoon. I usually look at it like a monkey. It hops from one tree to another. So you better catch it before it hops. So it's very difficult at times to determine the best interest. And that is why, as a court, we cannot work, we are not in an island. We have to work with all these experts. We have to ask the children officer, when you visited that home, how was the home assessment? Is there food in that house? And at times they will tell you there's no food. So you have to consider all those issues, all those socioeconomic, trauma issues, psychosocial issues, before you make a determination. Because for a child, when you make a mistake, that is the end. We have a case where a case is told, a mother runs to court and says, I have a feeling that this man will kill the children. Then because it's already beyond 5 and you feel it's already beyond 5, I can't sit. So the magistrate says, yes, I know it's an emergency, but can you come on Monday? Lo and behold, you watch the news when you're seated and you're cooling your feet in your house. Then you see the headlines, those small headlines going down. A father kills 2 children. So you're like, okay, so sad. Until on Monday, you go to your desk and you find it was the same woman who was telling you kindly, I have a feeling this person is going to kill these children. So and I told you, the best interest changed. It was different in the morning, and at 5 p.m., you see it has changed. The situation changed. Received or got information that this man has driven towards the river. So she says, can you save my children? Because they've driven towards the cliff or the river. But now, because you're not very keen on the best interest, and it's already 5:30, what do you say? Come on Monday. So those experiences are real issues, and they make us sit as magistrates and become very sensitive to every voice you hear in court. And other than just being a magistrate, I also sit in the task force, in the NCAJ task force. And there are very many opportunities when it comes to child justice. It's a gold mine. It's just an area that many people have not delved into. And there are very many opportunities. Because then I'm speaking to this forum where there are students, I want to tell you that there are students who have taken upon themselves, and especially in my court, to come and volunteer as researchers. They only give us time to just come and do research. I have very many of them. I sit in Makadara Law Courts, and there are very many students. There's one who is online, Kelvin. He has this organization called Operation Wake a Smile. And those are just law students who put a smile on a child's face. And when we sit together and talk, they're very curious about what else can we do. And every day they come to court, they discover there's always something new. And together we put up this a research project on psychosocial support. And I'm glad you mentioned, because when I joined judiciary, I discovered it was a gap. How do you handle a child who comes to court and freezes? You know, freezing is one of the effects of trauma. There are people here who freeze. I don't know. There are those who fly out the flight. When there's a panic right now, there's a situation right now, everybody has their own different ways of reacting. So when we realize that these children come to court and we don't have trauma assessment, together with the students, we said, why don't you do research? And we discovered there was nothing on psycholegal support. And I'm glad one of you asked. It's a very green area. It's very lush green. We have psychologists who practice psychology. We have child therapists, but they've never thought that their work is useful in court. So together we put up some useful documents and materials with the help of those students. There are 5 of them. And initially we were just trying, and I decided I will try with my court. I mean, I'm covered under Article 53. Who can fault me for asking for a psychosocial report? So what we do is we do trauma assessment. Now we have a toolkit for trauma assessment. The point I interact with the children are twofold. We have the trial court where I am supposed to be very neutral. I cannot show any emotion. You have sat in the trial court. The court cannot be a washe court, you know, like washe, you know. You sit and you are, we are never taught to be feeling less, but you find most of the time we are just looking at you and listening and not doing much, because then we're not allowed to take sides. There's an accused person who has a whole Article 49, a whole Article 50. And you remember the child only has one, Article 53, but it's still an article, yeah? And it comes immediately after Article 50. So we realize that we have to be sensitive to Article 53 also. What is the best interest of the child? So the court sits in 2 instances. One as a trial court, where you just determine disputes, where you're supposed to be a neutral arbiter. And then there's a special court, which most of you don't know. I realized yesterday at the moods that we have not been introduced to the protection and care court. This is the best interest court. This is the court where the magistrate comes to the level of the child. We practice something called child inclusivity. We ask the child, where do you want to go tonight? So you have a parent, the father on the left, the mother on the right, and you come and sit with the child. They sit where you are and you ask them, can you choose? Where are you going? Where will you stay? And if the child refuses to choose, you know what to do. They will tell you, I'm not going to any of their houses. So that is when now you have to call children's services and ask for alternative care. Yeah. And if the child moves to the father, then you make that decision based on what the child feels. So it's a court that is so sensitive to the needs and the issues around the child. And we have child inclusivity. I sit in an all criminal court, and there's a child who had allegedly been assaulted by a parent, the father actually. I can speak about it because the case was concluded last year. And I said, I want a victim impact assessment. What are the feelings of this child? And I said, I will interview the child myself, because the children officer was not able to reach the child. We couldn't find this child. And I felt I needed to get the feelings of this child about the case. So this child did for me a very good ruling. I asked them, what do I do? He said, jail them completely. Jail this man. I don't want, in fact, he called the father man. He said, jail this man. I don't want to ever. Actually, they wrote down, and I used their wishes in the proceedings. I attached what they had written to the court in their proceedings, that jail them. I don't want to see them ever. Then he said, can I draw a picture of what I don't want to see? So I said, okay, fine, you can draw a picture. And he drew the picture of the father. This is what I don't ever want to see in my life. So you can imagine now, don't you think we included that child in that decision? So yes, I will apply the law, but the wishes of the child have already been captured. We don't do that often. And that is why we now have adopted art and play therapy, which I think I have a whole session tomorrow to speak to you about art and play therapy and how we use it for trauma assessment. And I can officially tell you, to the person who was asking, yes, psychology has officially met the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As you can see, the court's role now has been, expanded. It's not just sitting and drafting rulings, especially when it comes to children matters. You can see the kind of interventions that the court makes when it comes to children. So now I'd like to introduce Paul. Paul is very important in this panel. And Paul has been through the justice system as a child. So we are very, very privileged to have him here on this panel so that he can tell us, you've had the ideals of what the justice system is supposed to be like, what their rules are supposed to be like. But let's hear what Paul experienced in the justice system when he was in it. Thank you, Paul, for coming. We're so humbled. Thank you so much. Karibu.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it good afternoon or good morning? Afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Wainaina, as you have heard, and I'm privileged to be here. This being first annual Child Justice Forum, I feel humbled to be welcomed being part of the panelists. And just as you have heard, I happen to be to go through the process, the hands of all these beautiful ladies. Less one, the legal representation, which I believe most of you is where you have interest about child laws. I don't know how much I'm supposed to cover now in terms of introduction. Very narrow, then we're going to discuss later. Eh? Okay, very good. Just as I've said, my name is Paul Wainaina, and I'm a graduate of entrepreneurship and small business management. Currently a practitioner as a banker, and having a lot of interest on children's protection. And I believe with the guidance that my soul is telling me, that's an area that I'm focusing on. I happen to be in the hands of law or in conflict of law. That's what the term that I've heard from the ego units here. I don't know. I have to appreciate that. I was in conflict with law, and that was back in 2003. And I stayed in the heart of these beautiful ladies the whole time since 2003 to the year 2015 when I graduated from the university. So I'll be having much to share and also give my thoughts in terms of recommendation to encourage the discussions. Thank you very much.
I think we can give you an opportunity right now to tell us, what did you experience in the justice system, how you entered, and what challenges you faced while you were in the justice system, how you were handled. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a good now kickstart. At least explain my feelings and my thoughts given this platform, and also to share the experience. One, I'll start from the first time. I was 13 years old when I got arrested, and I'll start from the arrest stage. We were back at home with my sisters doing homework. That time I was in class 7, and some visitors came. I think it's a unit that is not represented here, the police, which I'm very happy of them because they do a good job. But at times you have to see the truth where the truth is. The chief came with 2 officers and 2 gentlemen who are my neighbors and the complainant. They came inside the house and told my mom that they want to talk with her. So she went out. We didn't know what was happening and what was the discussion about. But later on they came and told me that they want to go with me somewhere with no idea where I was going. So I asked them where at night. Because I saw my mom crying, so I thought that there was something bad that was happening. So I had to, fortunately, I knew the chief because he was a neighbor, not very far from about a kilometer. So I happened to know him. And I said that I'm not going anywhere. Where are you taking me? I want to know where I'm going. So they started asking me questions now. And I could be able now to picture the reason as to why they are there. So I tried to explain myself, and I told them that the things that we're talking about, I was not within. I was in school. You can go to school tomorrow morning and confirm from my class teacher and the pupils that were in the same class. But the chief could not understand. I think he was paid. he could not be able to understand. But from the finding, I confirmed that it's true. Someone who was given by the person who committed the crime happened to come from a wealthy family, and they paid for me to be arrested rather than their children. But I confirm right now that guy is in remand for the same crime that he have done to the family members. So I'm not saying that is a good thing. I wish he could have changed, but law has to go to take its course. God does his things in plans. The reason I was arrested, because if I wasn't arrested, I would not be arresting him. So I'm happy for being arrested. That's the first time that I'll say. Maybe I could never got a chance to address you. Maybe I could have been a drunkard. Coming from a poor family, I could be a drunkard man right now. But out of that forum of having gone through the hands of these beautiful ladies, that's why I'm addressing this forum. So I was arrested, and I was beaten up because I resisted to go. So the chief beat me up, and finally I was taken to the police station. But they didn't beat me in front of my parents. So they went after nimeshaingia kwa gari. So we went to near the vehicle. So I refused to go into the vehicle. So the chief beat me some slaps, and I usually remember, sorry that he's right at the moment, but I gave him feedback after the release. I gave him feedback on what I felt, which was a good thing because he apologized. So I was taken to police station, and I went to the OB. I didn't know that's an OB. So I went to the OB. I was asked about my names, and I was told to remove one shoes and the belt. I didn't have the belt, unfortunately, but I was able to remove the slippers that I had, and went to the cells. From the judicial system, I believe last time, I don't know whether currently it has been implemented, the cell that I was taking, Rural Police Station, it was you are supposed to stay with the adult, even if you are a child, because there's no provision for children in that police station. So I went and stayed with those adults. I remember that night I slept standing. Kuna mwenye anakuhurumia huko. So I went there. We slept standing because the cell was full, and I really cried a lot. I cried a lot that night because where I was standing is next to where the urine was kept with a bucket, and I could not be able to withstand that. So I cried a lot. So early in the morning, my mom came, and I could not feel that she would go without me. But unfortunately, I had to go through the process because as a suspect, I have to go through the process as I was told. Unfortunately, there was no one who could be able to give me the counseling in that unit. So, but on the third day, at least I was able to adapt on the environment and interact with those people and told them the reason as to why I'm there. So they could even give me some place to sleep, the inmates that I was with them there. So we went there I stayed there for 6 days. Maybe my thinking was maybe they were doing investigations. I suspect so, which I don't think it was done. And finally, after this, on the 7th day, I went to Thika Magistrate Court. I think that's where Jackie comes in. That's the hands of judicially. So I went to Thika Magistrate Court, and the case was read to me, and I said that I'm not aware. I don't know about that issues. So I had to go now to remand. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know whether it's fortunate or unfortunately, there was no remand for children. I don't know whether it's what we are calling juvenile. There was no remand for children, so I had to go back to police station. So on my entire period of 1 year, 9 months, I stayed in Rural Police Station and Thika Police Station. Apart from one day that they had a confusion and they took me to Thika Remand, where I slept, and but in the morning I was taken back to Thika Police Station. So I'd go to, after every 14 days, I'll go to court for a mention. If it was a hearing case and the complainant is not there, so the case is taken forward. And that's how the process was. So I would give my experience now in the cell after now taken to the court. When I went to the court, nilisomewa, and I said that I'm not guilty about that matter. And so I had to go back to police station. Remember, here in police station, you are meeting new people every day, including the terrorists that Madam was talking about. They are coming there, and you are a child. Some of them will give you an idea on how they are going to rescue from being there. They'll go with you, and they help you to know what they are doing, and you become part of their team, knowing that you have stayed there and that your mind has been narrowed to be thinking on what is happening there. So for a child that may be easily influenced, I think giving a recommendation, that will not be a good place for a child when their case is going on. You can imagine myself staying there for 1 year, 9 months, meeting new faces, some faces coming there. Somebody is coming with the case today. They go, they are being released, they come again, they find me there, and the kind of discussion that happens there. That was not a good environment for me. Remember that place, there is no mattress. You have to sit actually on the floor, but not smooth one like this one. The floors in the cells are not smooth. I don't know why. So if you check my side, this side, you find that I have a bone here that is a bit tougher, it's a bit stronger than the others because I have to adapt in the environment of that floor. It's only for the last 6 months that I was given a mattress. I think the OCS who came to Rural Police Station, Mr. Mbogwa, gave a recommendation that I not be staying in that cell. So I was moved to another small cell where was a few guys were being taken there, and I was given a mattress. The last 6 months was not a tough one in terms of sleeping. And I also go to the other element of the meals. In the morning, you are given a cup of tea and 2 slices of bread. During lunchtime, I call it lunch because it was the meal for that time, and my body had to adapt with it. And some of us, when we were at home, maybe lunch was not a good thing, or maybe it was under master. So we are given some small piece of ugali and some skuma. For the first few days, I struggled because I was not getting satisfied on the size of the food, the way it is being cooked. But poor me, there's nothing that I could do. I have to eat very religiously and very passionately so that I can be able to sustain my health. So the food was not much okay in the cells. So that's another recommendation that I would say that for children, for those guys who are practitioners, for children, especially the meals when they are under custody, it's good to be checked. As far as it may look like a disciplinary process, but at least the meal should be very, very important. Another thing is about the health. Currently, I've been admitted several in hospitals because of my chest. That sleeping on the floor gave me a bigger problem on my chest, which I believe if at all there was other ways of handling children, I think I could not be able to face the same. And I would not wish anybody else who is a child to pass through the same process. I've been admitted to Kikuyu Hospital. I've been in Mpisha. And lastly, also in my referral when I was in hostels. And lastly in Aga Khan, which I think they are the one who have been able to discover what the problem was. And for the last 1.5 years, I think I'm stable. I've not been having issues with my chest. So I thank God for that. And I'm thinking at the moment I'm okay because I'm not even under medication at the moment. So not wishing any other child to go through the same process. When a child gets sick when they're in police station, at times we are being told, anajifanya ndiye apate special food. You see, that's the police telling you that. Anajifanya so that they can be able to get a special food. So even the kind of medication that we get when we are on those cells or maybe on the juveniles, they are not the best medications. So at least mtoto akisema amegonjeka, I think those people need to be trained to be known that if a child is sick, he's sick. They cannot pretend to be sick. And if they're pretending, let's assume that element because they need to be taken care of. So I'll give that one as a recommendation in terms of medication, very, very important. I'm happy about Jackie what she has said that whenever a request is made about a child in any court, the court may tend to favor the child. That's very good because child may be saying the truth or not. So, but more times we find the truth is the one that is carrying the highest weight. So medication is very, very important. So moving from the cell, you go to court after every 14 days. Remember that 13 years old, if I ask the lawyers who are in this forum, 13 years old, facing complainant, 1 or 2, witnesses, not witness, witnesses, investigating officer, who else? Prosecution. Madam is here to represent the prosecution side. And remember that prosecution represents the state. Yeah, wako side ya complainant, sana wako side ya complainant, even if some of them tend to be wako side ya complainant. Sindio? That child 13 years old representing that him or herself in the court. It's good everybody is told to go outside. But what happened after that? You are asked to ask them questions based on what they have said. How many questions will a 8 or 13 years child ask an adult? How many questions? More time, they'll be found guilty when the rulings comes. And our prison unit has been able to tell us much about it. So you can imagine having gone through that sharp shock, and you are innocent because you could not be able to represent yourself. So for those who are law practitioners, the students, I would encourage you. There's a bigger scope in terms of the representation. Somebody told me, I don't know that it is true, I stand to be corrected, that a case like the defilement case, students are not given free lawyers by the government. What the government will give is like the murder cases. Why? That's a child. That's a child, a young child who cannot be able to represent themselves in the course of law. They are dealing with complainant. Remember, if, for example, it's a deferment for a young child, another child, more times is the mother or the relative or the representative that will be talking and the prosecutor to represent that kid. What about this kid who is a suspect? No one who is sure whether this person is guilty or not. It's a trial process. Who represents that child? So I would recommend, if it is possible, for those children to be represented. Any children who is under 18 years and go through the court process, at least to have a legal representative in the court of law. That will be a good basis to be able to help to improve our society. Another element that I want to touch when you go to the court, the period taken with a case. You can imagine how much I lost within 1 year and a half. That's approximately 2 years complete out of school. Without schooling, the only thing that you are schooling yourself in is about criminals. Some of them will come and encourage you to do good things, but majority will tell you about negative things. So you can imagine the kind of experiences that those students are going through. 1.5 years. My recommendation would be, okay, I'm updated on the current status that the case should not go beyond 6 months, but even 6 months is too long. A case, okay, the government need to give enough resources to the judicial system, especially the children's courts, to be able to fast track those, to fast track those. They try, but they need to be given more resources to be able to fast track those cases. Like in every court, maybe there is 1 court for children. So should be having 2 or 3 for children, because they're the one who need special attention, so that their case can be processed faster. Somebody who is going to school to go back to school, and somebody who need to be guidance on that one. And also in terms of the cells, for those guys who are under custody, whether they have been in probation hostels in the Bostons or in the cells or in the remands or in the juveniles, we need to have at least somebody counseling those children. Remember that when I was in police station, the only person that I saw that gave me a word of encouragement was Madam Handa Maingi, who was my probation officer, currently still under the same unit. She's the one who visited me during the ruling of my case. And she's the only person who changed the thinking that I had. Because if for sure I came out to how prepared I was, I could not be the Paul that I am today. I could be a different Paul. But I really thank the probation unit through Madam Mainge, Hannah Mainge, because she's the one who asked me several questions in terms of trying to understand what happened. And she actually went on the ground. Irene Mora told us that we need to differentiate what is law and what is on the ground. When you're handling a case, kindly go to the ground. Even the students, visit those probation hostels, know what is happening on the ground, so that you can be able to have a true reflection of what is on the ground rather than what is on papers. She went on the environment, and actually she was able to discover a lot, that even the community had disowned that family that had paid had received the payment, and even the guys who paid, they were disowned by the community, and she could be able to confirm that I was actually innocent. So she asked me, Paul, where do you want to go? Do you want to go back home? Do you want to go back to school, or do you want to go to do any course? And I told them I want to go back to school. She went back and talked with my mother and tried to see whether my mom can be able to raise school fees. My mom, out of my arrest, she got a big shock, and she was diagnosed with ulcers. Currently, it's chronic. She takes medicine every day, but we are working hard to see how much you can be able to take her from that. And that's the thing that makes me feel so bitter. Because I believe if I was not arrested innocently, she could not have faced that. She could not. But I'm working hard. I know I still have energy, and I'm going to take her through that. So that's the thing that I would pray, that children should be taken care of, whether they are innocent or they are guilty. Because for me, I was innocent. But okay, maybe those through the God process to take me to where I am today. But I would request for those guys who are doing children to be able to take care of them. Do not assume that everything is okay for a child. Even if you are on the scene and you saw that thing happening, maybe they could have been enough for their parents and they end up finding themselves in crime. Maybe they're not eating. They're looking for something to eat. You need to understand that element. That's the most important thing. Understand that child first and know the reason as to why that thing happened. Otherwise, we could be having a bigger society with the children who are not taken care of. So that's the element that I would request everybody who is a practitioner to be able to take care of. Sorry for that. Finally, as I conclude, I'll just go directly to my recommendations in terms of the things that I would recommend to happen rather than the experience. That's the experience how it was. But I'm happy about Rural Police Station. For the last 6 months, the OCS who came there take care of me, even changed my diet, and I was given good care of for the last 6 months that I was in Rural Police Station. But for the rest 1 year and 3 months, it was big chaotic. Food kidogo, ugonjwa hakuna kutibiwa vizuri, and then the kind of the things that you are learning there. So a better education, I've talked about it. Sorry, it's okay. Have counseling units, I've talked about it. The quality of the food. It's okay. Sorry for that, guys. Sorry. I became a bit emotional because of mom. It's bad for a man to cry. It's bad, especially in front of people. We hide ourselves. But every time my mom sickness is mentioned, I feel emotional. So in terms of the programs, for those guys who are handling the probation units, the hostels, sorry guys. I will not cry again. I'm a strong man. I won't. So about the hostels are very good. I would really recommend that we increase those numbers from 4 to the current 6 to as many as possible. We can have at least 1 hostel in every counties, because in hostels, for those guys who understand the hostels, in the hostels you stay like you are staying at your own home. Actually, I was in a day school. I schooled in Warren High School. It's a public school. I was just staying in the hostels and going to the school every day. Probation unit was able to take care of me in terms of my school fees for class 7 and class 8. Fortunately, out of the urge that I had to ensure that I'm going to help my mom, so I was able to work hard in my primary school, and I got a good high school, which is a day school, and I also passed and went to university to do my course in entrepreneurship. So I would encourage, for those guys who are dealing with hostels, kindly try to recommend as many as possible, because the kind of population that is like where I was in Kimumu probation training hostels in Eldoret, we have the vocational units and the school unit. So if you check on the kind of population that is being held there, that population can be shared somewhere else, so that you can be able to have a good environment where child are feeling that they're in home. In terms of the mambo ya kulima na kufunga ng'ombe, that one the way Justice Madeka talked about, that one must happen. It's a very good to be able to build our morals as children. So in Kimumu, we also had cows, we had farm, so many acres of land that we are farming. And out of that one, we got a lot of responsibility, because even at home we work. But it's only if it's done in the right way, that's not a punishment, then everybody will be able to appreciate. And I really thank the management of Kimumu Probation Trading Hostel, because they build us to that capacity. Another recommendation that I want to give in terms of the books, I think would be a very good thing, people, or maybe to have a library within every hostel that we have. Be a very good thing for children to be able to get good feedback to the society. Legal representation, that one I talked about. Kindly let's ensure that we have legal representation for all children that are going through the court system, because to me, I feel they are not of age to represent themselves. Shorten the court process, I've talked about it. Have counseling and mentorship programs for those guys who are going through the court process. Even for those who are in police station, we can have somebody who will be visiting them for counseling purposes. Some of them are there because they have been facing difficulties in the community. The integration process for probation units is a very excellent one. For my case, I want to say that the integration was done extremely good, and I was able to accept myself, and I was happy to go back. Actually, the complainant that made me arrested, we talk and we shake hands, but in a conscious way, because I don't find myself to where I was before. So that's a disclaimer. Children with special conditions that are in the hostels and the Bostons and the other places, they need to be taken care of. They should not be treated like anybody who is okay. They are okay, yes, but they have a special need that they need to be taken care of. So as you're doing your recommendations, if something can be done for those guys who are arrested and they have special needs, especially children, they need to be taken care of. I think I also want to echo the words of Irene Mora and Justin Madeka about the children, and also the justice talked in the morning about children should not be in the court corridors. They should be at home. The home can be where they are with their parents. A home can be in a hostel where they are taken care of. They should not be walking in the court of law. So for those guys who are dealing with the judicial system in the court, kindly shorten the length, shorten the period. I would really appreciate if I see that one being implemented. Otherwise, for the students, it's a good area. We need representations, me included as a child. Lastly, I want to comment about the guys who are also practitioners. I don't know which department that is dealing with that one. I was taken fingerprints at the age of 13. I was found guilty because I couldn't be able to represent myself. Currently, my good conduct has that case. And from the Kenyan system, I don't believe you can go to access government employment or even some private institutions when your good conduct is not okay. I have tried and it has affected me. So if there is a way that that one can be taken care of, somebody who is not below 18 years, they should not be taken in the records. Because some of us, we have been transferred, whether we are guilty or not, we have been transferred, we are different people. So you can imagine how much I'm facing in terms of accessing employment and other services because of my good conduct is not okay. So I'm putting it to mind of another child that may be facing the same. So if something can be done, I think it would be very good. Thank you very much. If there's anything else you want to share.
I'm speechless. Honestly, I think to have this perspective of the child, Paul is one person. So you can imagine the thousands and thousands of children who are in the justice system who are going through what he went through. They need you. That's what we are trying to tell you. Those children need you because the children officer, yes, will be there. But if a child is going to go to court, they need to have someone to represent themselves. You can imagine you as a child when you are 13 years old. Even now, going to court is scary. So you can imagine at 13 years old going to court. So we're trying to tell you that we need you. We've seen a challenge. There's a gap in the justice system for legal representation for children in Kenya. And we are trying to appeal to you to help children such as for able to follow up on that. Yeah, there's an order on that that's not supposed to happen. And I think there's going to be someone from the DCI tomorrow. So I think we can take that conversation up and see what we can do. So you've heard from Paul what the challenges are in the justice system, and NCAJ, which is the National Council on the Administration of Justice, has brought together all these justice actors to come up with interventions or to fill these gaps. And the CUC is one of those intervention. So I'd like for Sylvia to take some time. I know it's lunchtime, so take some time to tell us what CUC does, why it is important in the child justice system, and the progress that we've been able to make as the National Council on the Administration of Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. Good afternoon, everyone. Please let us just give Paul another round of applause. I think he's very well versed with matters around the criminal justice system. And I think even as the justice actors, we can actually benefit a lot from the experiences that he continues to share moving forward. My name is Sylvia Yentet. I work at the NCAJ and I'm in charge of managing court users committees, popularly known as CUCs. So CUCs are anchored under the National Council on the Administration of Justice. And in terms of the statute, we are provided for by the Judicial Service Act, Section 34. So if you want to look at Section 34 and Section 35, which then gives us the mandate for the council. So the NCAJ is governed by the council, and the council is chaired by the Honorable Chief Justice. And it also includes the various principles represented here, and also from the various institutions represented here. So if you're speaking about the ODPP, if you're speaking about the Director of Probation, if you're thinking about the Commissioner General of Prisons, and all the other justice actors, they actually sit at the helm of the NCAJ, and that is at the council level. CUCs are now NCAJ council at a devolved level. And so we actually have the same representation at the various court stations. We have CUCs operationalized in all the 127 magistrates courts. And we also have what we call the county CUCs, which are found at the high courts. And this brings together the respective. especially with regards to matters administration of justice. So essentially, what are CUCs? And I'd like to give a definition. CUCs are definitely platforms. So if you look at the bench and the panel today, we have the duty bearers, and we also partnerships, just to ensure that there's synergy, there's cohesion, that the actors are talking to each other. Any bottlenecks that are found within the justice system are actually sorted out at the court user committee level. CUCs are convened by the respective heads of station. They are mandated to meet quarterly. So they meet 4 times in a year. And they actually come up with innovations. They come up with solutions that touch on the respective jurisdiction with regards to the administration of justice. So any bottlenecks, any challenges that, for example, the police is facing with regards to inmates or arresting persons, or whether the ODPP has a challenge with regards to how they are getting the files from the police stations, that is actually sorted out at the CUC level. So we encourage synergies, we encourage justice actors to speak together to ensure that the justice chain, as you're well aware, the criminal justice system is a chain. We have, even from discussions today, we have seen that everyone is involved from the community, and Paul has alluded to the fact that the chief was involved in his particular case. So the community is very involved. You move on and you cascade to the police stations. You move on after that, the files are prepared, and the decision to charge is made by the ODPP. So the prosecution comes in place. Therein, you also have reports from the, of course, then it moves to the judiciary, and then you also have reports from the children's department, from the probation department, and then you also move over now to the Kenya Prison Service, where we speak about incarceration and rehabilitation. So everybody is actually involved in the criminal justice system. And so we must ensure that the chain is strong. We must ensure that they're not, we don't have any bottlenecks within the justice chain. In terms of the CUCs, we have specialized CUCs. We also have CUCs at the tribunal level, and we also have specialized CUCs like one on children. So we have what we call the Children's Court Users Committees. And these are essentially mandated with the duty to discuss matters around the administration of justice for minors and for juveniles within the justice system. From today's discussions, we definitely see the need to ensure that children are put to the fore, and that they don't actually fall through the justice system, and we don't forget about them. So CCUCs, that is the Children's Court Users Committees, are mandated to ensure that children are not forgotten, and that their issues are discussed, they're given prominence, and that they're actually dealt with within the required timeframes as prescribed within the law. In terms of the developments, we have had a lot of developments in terms of the development of different policies and just different legislative processes that have actually come into place. One of the ones that I'm excited about, which is a new one, is the development of Children's Court Users Committee guidelines. And these guidelines are actually going to be guiding the courts in how they administer children's cases, how children are handled, what timelines, do these children need any special protection? Do they need their matters expedited? Are there reports which the court is expecting that have not actually been brought to the fore? So discussions like that. And also the children's bill is one of the other ones that I know is exciting and has been alluded to before. One of the other ones that I'd like to speak to is that we have also encouraged court users and the justice actors to stop working in silos. So just to ensure that we are talking to each other and that we are actually ensuring that matters are moving efficiently and expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. So that is the work of the court user committees. It's under the NCAJ. And as you can see from the justice actors, we also have a special task force on children matters, which focuses solely on children. We also have other committees and task forces and working groups under NCAJ, but this one focuses solely on children. And one of the ways that we try to help children in the justice system is through service weeks. November is the service month, the annual service month in the judiciary. And if you want to be involved in any of the court user committees that will be holding the service week, so that you can be able to know how to plug in, how to be involved in the service weeks to clear that backlog, to visit the facilities, I think we can arrange with the respective schools that are involved, and Sylvia as well, because she's the manager, she's the boss, CUCs, and then see how to plug you in. As for now, I think I'll hand over so that we can go for lunch. I know we've been seated for a long time, but thank you so much for your time. We'll go for lunch, and then after that, we'll have a Q&A with the students. I hope you can stick around, the panelists. Sylvia, are you available? No? Okay, Sylvia will be leaving, but I think we can have the panelists who will be representing the various agencies to be left behind for a Q&A, so that we can have an interactive session on, I'm sure you have so many questions. So thank you so much. Another round of applause. Yes, I'll hand over to the moderator to.
Thank you, Rosalind, and thank you, panelists, for taking us through that insightful session of just understanding the various stages in the justice system through which children pass. So without much further ado, we'll go for lunch. Lunch will be served in the same place that we got tea break from. But before that, Thomas Joseph from KSL will pray for the lunch. And as he comes, a point of information, if you're from these universities, Daystar, Egerton, Strathmore students, Moy University and Kisii University and UMA, you're requested to remain behind as people go for lunch for just 1 minute. Yeah.
All right, let's be upstanding. Okay, let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you, King of Glory, for the fruitful deliberations we've had so far. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your guidance. We thank you for these discussions, King of Kings. And Lord, we pray that you may even go ahead of us into the next session. And King of Kings, even before we partake of the meal that is before us, we pray that you may bless it, for the Lord God who provides. So we bless your name and we thank you, King of Kings. For it is in your holy name, Jesus Christ, that we pray, believing and trusting. Amen.
If I've called your university, remain behind. And because of time, by 10 minutes to time, we should all be seated here. Thank you.
Fine.